JLF's Brave New World welcomes you back to our second session of the day. Those of you who missed our earlier session, Present Tense from the Battlefront, Dr. Amrish Sathwik and Arunava Sinha in conversation, and all of the other wonderful sessions, including Dr. Siddharth Mukherjee, Peter Frankopan, Stephen Greenblatt, Maja Lunde, Orhan Pamuk, and so many others. You can catch them on JLF Litfest on Facebook and on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF. A reminder that on Wednesday, the 17th of June, we will be honored to present the Seed of Compassion, His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, in conversation with Bhikkhu Iyer. His Holiness speaks of finding love and peace in our confused, divided, and chaotic world, and of the universal value of compassion in these troubled times. The telecast of this session will be live at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time on 17th June, 3 p.m. British Standard Time on the 17th of June, and 11:30 p.m. 16th June, and 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 17th June. Our official radio partner is Red FM, Bajate Raho. Our next session is War and Peace. Izzeldin Abuelaish in conversation with Marie Brenner. Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish has dedicated his life to using health as a vehicle for peace. Dr. Abulaish's book, I Shall Not Hate, a Gaza doctor's journey on the road to peace and human dignity, an autobiography of his loss and transformation, has achieved worldwide critical acclaim. Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish is a Palestinian-Canadian physician and an internationally recognized human rights and peace activist. Dr. Abuelaish has been recommended for the Nobel Peace Prize 5 times, and his book, I Shall Not Hate, has achieved worldwide critical acclaim. Published in 2010 and currently available in 24 different languages, it was inspired by the loss of his 3 daughters, Bisan, Mayar, and Aya, and their cousin Noor to Israeli shelling on 16 January 2009. Dr. Abuelaish is currently an associate professor at the Dalai Lama School of Public Health at the University of Toronto. Marie Brenner is an American author, investigative journalist, and writer at large for Vanity Fair. Her Vanity Fair article on tobacco insider Jeffrey Wiggin, the man who knew too much, inspired the 1999 movie The Insider, starring Russell Crowe and Al Pacino. A Private War with Rosamund Pike as legendary war correspondent Marie Colvin was adapted from Marie Brenner's Marie Colvin's Private War. Brenner has also produced the documentary Where's Mr. Roy Cohen, which was released in September 2019. Please do comment and ask questions by typing it in the comment section. And in case any of you drop off due to bandwidth issues, you can find us on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF. And of course, if we drop off, just hang in there and we'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, War and Peace, Izzeldin Abuelaish in conversation with Marie Brenner.
Thank you, Sanjoy. And what an honor it is for me to be here with you, Dr. Abuelaish, in this extraordinary moment of history the world is tilting through. I must say, your book has so inspired me. I've read it through these astonishing last days, and I wanted to say that a sentence in it leaped out at me, and I have put it up on my computer. And that is when you write, you have been able to find the good chapter of the bad story. And I wanted to just say that this book and your story of what you have been through is such a necessary text for this moment in the world. Could we plunge in and have you tell our audience at the Jaipur Literary Festival just a bit about your remarkable life?
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure in these days, because in a time the world is facing a universal challenge with the COVID-19, in addition to other challenges that we didn't speak about, violence, injustice, poverty, diseases. So my book came to inspire the people. It's a universal message of hope and taking responsibility. That's why I wrote it. And the stories are not stories just to read. Stories are data as we use it these days with COVID, we use the data for what? To decide what are we going to do, to set up the plans, to face the war of what is called the pandemic of COVID. So war is surrounding us everywhere. So my life was a war. And when we speak about war, what do we mean by war? It's not the gun or the soldier who is going to kill and to be killed. It's about innocent people who are dying in silence and we don't know about them. We don't hear about them. It's about
So can you
women
start
and
us in? Can you start us with your childhood in the refugee camp and
yes,
your mother?
because as a Palestinian refugee, my childhood was a war. I don't know the meaning of being a child, just the abject poverty, suffering, deprivation, and all of my suffering. I realized that it's man-made. As war is man-made, as violence is man-made. So I took responsibility. What can I do to take the challenge and to face it and to say, no, I will never accept it. So from my early childhood, I decided I want to get rid of the misery of life. I have to work hard. And the only way to get rid of this war against the humanity is education. Someone can deprive, can occupy, can oppress, can kill, but no one can deprive us from dreaming and taking the challenge. And that's what I did to move forward and to take responsibility to be immunized against the war.
I was so moved by reading the story of your mother's bucket. And if you could just tell and reflect upon the very specific experience that you saw your mother going through, where the bucket was shared as a bassinet in a place where she also had to wash the dishes.
You know, that situation, because it's living with me now, I see it in many other people who are suffering in this world because of the living situation. Because as we say, well-being, health, freedom, justice depend on who you are and where you are. We lived in a refugee camp, 9 people in one room, 3 by 3 square meters. And at that time, one of my sisters, she was in that bucket, and my brother, he was jumping. My mother wants to punish him, so he jumped in that basket, and of course she passed away. I see this is the living conditions of the people. So when we speak about peace, peace means shelter, food, life. We need to think of the well-being of the people. And that's the silence where people are dying in silence in Africa and many other places because of the living conditions, the food and other environmental conditions in which they live.
But you were able, through a teacher who saw your promise, you would tell us just the very particular details of how you were able to first enter the Quran memorizing contest and how you were able to then go on scholarship to school.
At the school, I have nothing. The only way in front of me as a Palestinian refugee, and even for us as Palestinians, after we have been exiled from our homeland, our parents, they realized only one thing: just to invest in the education of their children, and we have to succeed from nothing. So I have to work hard, and school and education was my compass that I have to get rid of this suffering through education. So I went to read Quran, not because I am a religious, because I want to compete and to earn some money when I get an award or a prize to support my family. Because Palestinians, as many others, we are not living for ourselves. You are living for others, to give back, to support, to give hand, to take responsibility. Because the biggest challenge in the human life is individual responsibility. So we need to take responsibility to face the challenges we are facing. So school was the only way. So even as a child, my teachers, they believed in me, and that teachers, as doctors, they are messengers of the humanity. So we value teaching and education and the teachers. So I worked hard, and I dreamed from my early childhood, I wanted to be a medical doctor. Because
one of your teachers said to you about your work that you needed to study. Tell us
They
that
were
story.
impressed by it, and they believed in what do I do. They said to me, Izzeldin, you can be a doctor, you can be engineer, you can be something good. So they motivated me, they inspired me, but at the same time, life has no mercy. When you are in a challenge, what can you do? You are suffering. Before we want to feed the minds, we want to feed the stomach. When you are hungry, when you are in pain, how can you function? I remember one time I went to school without a breakfast, and most of the time, what is our breakfast? Is bread and tea. So you go there, I collapsed at the school, and that's the life. So I feel it these days when I see someone who is suffering, it resonates with me. It brings me back to my life.
I was very moved by your story in the book of being a young boy and going to work for the Israeli farm family that was so good to you. Can you tell us about that and how that changed your life?
Yeah, because summer holiday for us is not the summer holiday. Summer holiday is to work during it, to earn and to support your family. So I remember at that time, it was the summer holiday. I went to work with an Israeli Jewish family from Yemen to feed.
How old were you at that point? How
14 years old, to feed the geezes and to stay with them there for 40 days, to wake up at 6 o'clock and till 8 o'clock in the evening, working in their farm with everything they want. And it was.
Were you afraid before you went? What did you know about Jews from Israel and people from Yemen?
I saw the first time, I saw the Israelis as soldiers when they occupied the Gaza Strip. I was a child and I saw them coming with guns. So of course it was for me like the end of the world. What are we doing here? What is going on to feel the war? So then I worked with this family. I started working with them. But every day at the beginning, I was worried, I was afraid, sleeping outside. And every day I read Quran. What can I do? I counted the days, because for a child at the age of 14 to spend this time away from his family, where the children are supposed to enjoy the summer holiday. But it was inspiring to me to work there and to earn 400 Israeli liras and to learn about the family. And I went back home, and 1 week later, the Israeli commander of the Gaza Strip, Ariel Sharon, he demolished our houses because he wants to widen the streets for the tanks to pass by. But these 400 liras were helpful in buying a new house at the camp. And this family.
So you grew up very much with a split screen consciousness. On the one hand, because of your experience working for this family, you understood that Jews were also very generous and very good people. Then you return as a teenager to Gaza and you see Sharon destroying your house, but you're able to buy your family a new house. And you stayed friendly with this family.
It's important not to generalize. And that's one of the principles in my life that I learned, not to generalize, to say, oh, people are there. We need to be specific about things in our life or the people with whom we deal. Even this family, the Yemeni family, I worked in 1970s with them. I stayed away. I went to study medicine. I became a specialist in obstetrics gynecology. I worked in Israel. Then in 1994, after participating in a conference in Tel Hash in Jerusalem, I said, it's time to go to visit the family. Believe me, I felt at that time I am going back to my family, and I wanted to be sure that the parents are still alive. So I went to their home. I knocked by the door. At that time, then one of their daughters who was born when I worked there. So she was at that time 24 years old. She asked me, what do you want? I said, I want to meet your dad. So they thought that I am a businessman. I am coming to have businesses with them. I said, no, I am not a business. So he asked me, what do you do? I said, you don't know me. I am Izzeldin, that teenager who worked for you. We hugged each other. We hugged each other. And the first question I asked him, I asked him, what about your mother? How is she doing? How is your father? So we went to see his mother, and she said, I remember this child when he used to come inside the cubes for the chicken and the goodies. She said, this child is not for this kind of work. He must be something. And that's what impressed me. I realized when we humanize, when we know each other,
Absolutely.
and we need to know each other. And knowing is not just to know the name, to show passion, to show respect. And that's the kind of knowledge we want to know, to work together. And that's peace. When we speak about peace, peace is not just the absence of war or conflict. Peace is a way of life. Peace means justice, freedom, equality, respect, dignity, and they are essential and crucial to our dignity to be fully human. We need them, and to think of others.
You're so right. Over the weekend, I've been reading Ibram Kendi's extraordinary book about anti-racism, the historian who's at American University, who is such a force at this moment. And one of the lines that so moved me, he writes that we are in a basic struggle to see each other as human beings. And this so reverberates and resonates with your message, Dr. Abuelaish. But take us into the moment where you go to Cairo on scholarship and begin your studies in your great work on infertility, and then come back and you're hired as the first Palestinian doctor at an Israeli hospital.
Yeah, I worked there because I believed in medicine, and I practiced medicine because what do we mean by medicine and health? And these days, you see, with the COVID-19, which is a universal pandemic, it's a global pandemic, it impacts. So I believed health. When you go to any hospital in the States, you will find different kinds of patients, different names, different ethnic backgrounds. But how are they treated? They are treated equally, with the respect. The only difference between them is the diagnosis. So medicine and health are a human equalizer. They are stabilizer, they are socializer, and they are equalizer. So why not to learn that we need to socialize, to humanize, to equalize, and to socialize between people? And that's the message of the politicians. It's time for us these days to humanize, not to politicize. Because politics will create a divide, but medicine and health bring us to the role of science and scientists. And the people, they came now to trust the role of science and scientists and the role of health professionals. They are the frontline fighters. For what? For the human life. They value human life.
You write very movingly about the language of science and what you discovered about how the language of science is essentially colorblind, race blind, nationality blind. It is a global language. Your first lesson in understanding that came when? In Cairo, at Harvard, where and when and how?
Yeah, I learned it, of course. It's evolving through my life. Everywhere I go, I learn from it. So from my early childhood, even when I was a child at the hospital, at the age of 10 years old, I realized the role of medicine, the doctors, what are they doing and how they save lives. And when I went to Egypt to see different kinds of students, international students from everywhere, at Harvard, in London. So I realized it through my work at the hospital when I see the different kinds of patients. And when I worked in Israel to see the different patients, Palestinians, Israelis, Muslims, Jewish, Christians, Druze, Bedouins, all of them are treated equally. And I realized through that we all are equal, and we are born equal, we are born free, and we must live a free and equal people in this world. And that's the message of health and medicine for politicians and others to take it, to adopt it, to spread it, and to implement it.
We have so much to get to. I would like to get to the moment where you send your older daughter to Deborah Sugarman's camp in Santa Fe, Creativity for Peace, and Bison's extraordinary journey, and then to December 2008 and your Olive Grove, and what happens next?
I remember it in 2003. I was in Italy, and Bisan, my daughter, she is my eldest daughter. She is the closest to me. She is not a daughter. She was my mind, my friend, my manager. I listened to her. I received a phone call from a friend of mine that there is a peace camp and it's for girls. Once I heard it's for girls, I said, I found it. Peace camp for girls. They can make peace. I know girls and young women and women, they can make peace. Women by their nature, they are the incubator. They bring people together. So I will send Bisan. So I sent her to the camp. And the first few days with the challenges, because she doesn't speak English well, she was facing some challenge. And she called me. I said, be persistent, be determined, stay there, and you will manage it. 2 days later, she called me that all of the girls, they are staying at her home. And I learned from her at that camp what she said. I found how similar are we. Yeah. When girls, they come together to find the commonalities between them. And she said at that camp, and what she learned, we can't meet and face violence with violence. There is another way. And everything, even she said, everything starts small, then becomes big. Everything starts in one place and then it goes in different directions. So this even conversation, it starts, you know, between you and me, organized by Jebul Literature Festival, but can spread. So we must not underestimate our action.
And she was the first girl from Gaza to be admitted to the camp. And then Deborah Sugarman, who is quite a gifted filmmaker and ironically grew up in the same city I did. Our families knew each other, so I've admired her for years and her work. She took Bisan and 4 other girls in a van across the country to meet President Bush to try to talk to him about peace. Isn't that right? So you can see her in this award-winning documentary, Bisan, Dear Mr. President. It's such a moving film.
Yeah, it's a moving film, but I hope this message of young girls, of women, the cry of women who are waging and asking for peace, I hope politicians to listen to them. That's what.
So now let us fast forward, for the sake of time, to December 2008 and what unfolds over those next few weeks into January.
Yeah, of course, in December 2008, 27th of December 2008, what is called war, where I don't believe in war. We invest in war and it's man-made. 16th of January is the day when the Israeli tank shelled my house and killed 3 of my daughters and niece and severely wounding others for no reason.
The events of that day and Bisan being in the bedroom and your wife's recent death and the tank coming in front of your house. If you could just tell the people who are watching this a little bit about the particular events of that day.
Because during the war, I used to be as informal correspondent to talk about the impact of war on innocent people, in particular children and women, to the Israeli media and everywhere. So 14th of January, a tank approached my house and I thought it's the end of the world. What's going on? Children, innocent people here. And when the tank to direct the cannon to the building, what can I do? Even when you see, you can't save your children, you can't help. Imagine this, your beloved children, you want to save them. So I called my friend Shlomi Ildar and he connected me with the people in the field and they moved the tank, and there was no reason to be there for the tank to be there because there is nothing. I thought we are safe, we are secure. They know my place. Then 16th of January, the unexpected happened. Because every day even, I was expecting something to happen. Who is from my children to be killed? This one, that one, I don't want. and I don't want anyone on earth to see what did
And
I
as
see,
the
because I see
doctor,
it's happening.
you were incredibly well known. Everyone in the Israeli hospitals knew of you. When you would go through the checkpoints, when you weren't being harassed, often the guards would ask you to get birth control and to help you with their wives' infertility problems. So reading the details of what happened, this god-awful, unimaginable tragedy where your house is shelled by mistake, it tears your heart out to read this book and to read what happened to you. And can you tell about just what that was, to the sense of powerlessness of being in the situation?
Yeah, to be in a situation when you see your beloved children in front of you, those young girls who were armed with education, with hopes, with the plans, they became parts, drowning in their blood, the walls here, there, even to the extent that I can't recognize them. Where is Bisan? Where is Mayar? Where is Aya? Where is Noor?
And
What is happening?
Shlomi Elder, the Israeli broadcast journalist, you were able to call him as the shelling was going on. So the astonishing and horrific aspect is that this was actually shown on Israeli television and later on YouTube, so that the violence of Gaza became so understandable to the larger Israeli population. And then your children were you were airlifted out. I mean, the nuance of what happened is so is just so profound.
Yeah, that's what happened, because at that time I was supposed to be interviewed by Channel 10 by Ushrat Kotler, and I don't have her phone, so I called my friend Shlomi Eldar, who was at that time in the studio. So he told Ushrat Kotler, telling her there is something wrong with Dr. Abuelaish. I don't know what is happening there on the other side. So he called me. So I asked him to help in stopping the shelling, and what can we do to evacuate the casualties, and what can we do to manage those who are wounded. And I didn't know about what is happening there. So he helped, and that's the issue of the moral courage. When we get rid of everything the other, as a Palestinian, as American, as Israeli, as Indian, as here, we want to be human and to behave as a human. So he behaved with moral courage and to take responsibility and to open the speaker, to spread it live to the Israeli public. And of course, to show them what's going on. What are we doing here? These are innocent people. And of course, it was a transient, but how many times are we going to learn the lessons? Mistakes can happen, but we need to learn from these mistakes. And as Einstein said, insanity is repeat doing the same thing and you expect different result. War will never put an end. Only peace and equality and justice can put an end.
But somehow, through this profound tragedy, you made a decision to write about your absolute determination not to let this embitter you, and to move the lives of your surviving children forward, and to go to Canada and start practicing at the University of Toronto. Can you talk to us about that quest in your life to not let hate poison you?
Because at the time of the tragedy, I lost faith in the humanity. Because the world is watching what is happening and can't do anything. Where for me as a medical doctor, when I see a bleeding patient, I rush to stop the bleeding. So the world is, but I didn't lose. I am a person of faith, but I didn't lose faith in God. So I directed my face to God, asking for help, and I didn't say any bad word. Only why, and oh God, oh Lord, to give me the strength, the support to manage this tragedy. Because I believe also hatred is not going to be the answer. I have to continue, and that's what I swore to God and to my daughters. I will never rest. I will never relax. I will never give up. I will continue their message, but it's not going to be with hatred. Because for me, hatred, when we speak about hatred, what is hatred? Hatred is a disease. It's a poison. It's a fire. To whom? It poisons the human being who is impacted by it. It paralyzes the one who is afflicted with hatred. It makes us blind. I have to be strong. I have to move forward and to take the responsibility, not with hatred, but with courage, with determination.
And you have been just honored all over the world for your extraordinary work, Dr. Abuelaish. Can you tell us a little bit about the work of your foundation and about your continuing lawsuit against the Israeli government?
Yes, you know, even the war didn't stop, because afterwards I was fighting just to give a human face to my daughters, because I want to acknowledge, do they deserve to be acknowledged and to get the apology for what happened and the responsibility for what happened. Till now, I am fighting, just asking for apology from the Israeli government, not to speak, and I will never accept it to be, you know, I will never accept it in that way. So it's important. It's important for us.
Fighting this case. You've been fighting this case for years, and now are going up against this up to the Supreme Court, where you've been asked to post a financial bond to even take your case, even though they have acknowledged that it was just a terrible tragedy and a mistake.
Yes, because they will never be it will never be accepted as a collateral damage of war. They are not collateral. As I said, they know my house and they know everything, and mistakes, as I said, happen. They have to admit it's my mistake and to take responsibility and to apologize in order to move forward. So it's important for me to have it. So, and also in my life, as you asked me about my mother, about my daughters, in my life, I am in debt in my success to my mother, my wife, and my daughters. And I said, what can I do? When an Israeli colleague of mine, he said to me, the world will forget. I said, if the world forgets, I will never forget. What can I do to keep them alive? And nothing is more influential and live and impactful than to have a charity in their name for education of girls and young women, because I fully believe this world can endure, be peaceful, human, secure, safe, healthy. It's only with women and women's education, and to give women the right role and the opportunity to make. Let us in this world give the women the try to make it. I am sure, I am fully sure, if they can't make it a better one, they will never make it worse as it is now. So it's time for women to take the lead and to practice the right role in this world. Women are not a threat to our world. As many leaders in this world, they take it as a threat. Women complement the role of men, and we have to work together.
No question. Now, I see that we are being told by our producers at Jaipur that we have just a few minutes to get to some audience questions, which I have. But before we do that, could you just reflect very briefly on what you have learned that we could apply to this reckoning that is now going on around the world about the tragic and such painful events in the United States right now that the world is reverberating from? What lessons can you bring to this?
The lessons that we need to look around, to ask, to learn, to connect, and to come together to translate what did we learn and what are we talking about into actions. We all in this world, more than any time, we are potential victims. As you see, coronavirus and the COVID is impacting all. No one is far from risk. So we need to act and to proact in order to live together and to understand that peace is not just the absence of war. And your peace is from my peace. Your health is from my health. Your life is linked to my life. So we need and to take responsibility. It's time for the people to speak out and to come together, to work together, to make a difference in our world. And for the political leaders also to be risk takers and not just sitting there to politicize for their own political agenda. They have to have a human agenda and not to invest in war. You see it these days with the COVID-19. Where are military arsenals? What are we doing with it? It's impotent. It's useless. So we need to invest in the human needs, in the human services. And as Eisenhower said, every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies in the final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed. So it's time to direct our investment in a human interest and for a human cause.
And that very much connects to a question that I'm seeing. When human lives become data, the term collateral damage is used frivolously. Now, when the enemy is invisible, COVID-19, are the policymakers still using the same yardstick? Where does this stop? How does one forgive now?
Yeah, I agree with you. Even some politicians till now, they are inciting and using fear of the COVID to spread it in this world and not to think of COVID-19 as a threat, to use it as a silver lining opportunity to change our course and to use data not only as data, but data to be used to change our life and to set up the priorities and the strategies for the future. And we need to forgive ourselves. In what way? To take responsibility, to take care of ourselves and our health. Our body is a trust. So we need to take care and we need to forgive and to move forward.
This next question is, Jag asks, recognizing good even among those who occupy your lands is a rare gift. You know, to your extraordinary quote about we need to find the good in the bad chapter. One would expect a sense of anger and hatred rather than a commitment to peace. How do we break the walls that divide people everywhere? Good question. How do we break the walls that divide people everywhere?
So we can break the walls. We need these walls, first of all, to diagnose the problem. These walls, why are they there? And in order, we need the truth, because the truth gives us the light to move forward. So I believe in order to break the walls, we need to know each other and to communicate with each other and to understand the needs of the others. That's what is important, because when we speak about peace, peace is to think of the needs of the other. What are their needs? And it's not my peace, the mutual peace and the interconnectedness of a human peace, the individual, the family, the community, and the nation. And even these walls, sometimes they are psychological. They are psychological barriers, so we need to overcome our psychological barrier and the greed and the arrogance and the ignorance that we created in our minds.
As the historian who I quoted earlier, Ibram Kendi from American University, writes in his book on anti-racism, which is profound as yours is, this struggle that we are now undergoing now globally to see each other underneath the rhetoric as human beings, to see the humanism in all of us. All right, one last question we have time for. Aparajita asks, how do you think the world can get out of this constant loop of war and violence? Or do you believe this is something that will last as long as humankind exists? This is a very large question to end on, but probably the bright and the profound one.
We need to learn the lessons first from the past. We need to learn. We have been experiencing wars and conflict. Even the pattern of war is changing. And instead of being between countries, it's becoming now intra-ethnic countries and the people. So we need to overcome these challenges. And even for any war, we need to understand the causes. Why do we have war? Because of colonization, because, as you said, of greed, arrogance, greed, and the others. We can find ways and war is the last option. Like in medicine, the surgical treatment, it's not for our own interest to invade others and to put an end to the others. So it's important. War is not to be documented. War is to be prevented. And we can prevent. War for me is a disease as COVID is a war. We speak about Corona as a war, and many, they spoke about Corona as a war. So why not any violent or political war? How can we prevent it? To use the strategies to prevent it. And I fully believe if there is a will, there is a way we can prevent it, to overcome our arrogance, our greed, and to think of others, to think of the consequences of war. The consequences, if we know what is going to happen as a result of war, the lives, the people, the innocent people, believe me, no one will wage war.
But just to end with a more sort of optimistic note, I was very touched by the piece you wrote recently about the possibilities for transformation that are coming out of this nightmarish pandemic we are living, as well as the violence that we are seeing all over the world. Where is the blue sky for you that you wrote about recently in the Jerusalem Post, I believe?
Yeah, the blue sky is everywhere. The blue sky is covering all of us. It's not mine, it's yours, it's everyone's a blue sky, so we share it. And that's what I mean by it. We share one blue sky because you see it. Give me one place, one spot in the world which is free from Corona. So Corona is covering the whole world. So why not to be covered by peace and to have a blue sky for all and to avoid war and to invest all of the resources to face the challenges we are facing, including these pandemics, the poverty, the disease of poverty, the disease of inequality, the disease of discrimination, because we don't want anyone else to be killed. George Floyd has been killed. But what about others who are dying in silence? Are we going to learn the lessons and to say enough is enough? It's time to make a change and the reform in our attitudes and political actions at the United Nations, the international community. They should come together to change their attitude and to realize the equality and the respect for all and to value human life.
I can't think of a stronger note to end on. Dr. Abuelaish, thank you so much for appearing with me at the Jaipur Literary Festival. This has been just a remarkably inspiring session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marie. Thank you so much, Dr. Abuelaish. I wanted to share with you all, the last time we were with Dr. Abuelaish in Toronto, Canada, at the end of his conversation, like he did in Jaipur, he received a standing ovation. And then a lady put up her hand in the audience and she said, Dr. Abuelaish, thank you so much for speaking to us. I want to ask you a question and tell you a story. And she went on to tell a story about how she, as a migrant, and I think she was from Libya or from Syria, I can't remember, from Syria. And she and her son had come to Toronto. They'd been allowed into Toronto as refugees. And 3 months before that, her son was shot in a tram by the Toronto police. And her thing was, how can I forgive? And what happened that day was that for everybody in the audience in Toronto, where Syria could have been on Mars, it brought home to them what tragedy meant. It wasn't about somebody else in some other city, in some other space. It was about an immediate, and people wept and cried, and she herself, having heard Dr. Abuelaish, transformed, and she said, okay, now I understand the need to forgive. It was, I think, one of the most emotional moments for all of us. And thank you, Dr. Abuelaish, for continuing to wage war against war, to wage war against all that we see, the hatred and the terror and the violence around us. And I think that's absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, Zoom doesn't allow us to give you a standing ovation, but certainly a very long distance big hug to you.
Thank you
And
so
Marie,
much.
thank you so much for bringing alive this very special and extraordinary story, of losing 4 of your children and yet continuing to believe and having faith. And thank you. And thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks to you,
Thank you.
Marie. Really, this is the efforts of all of us. And that this small act from the Syrian woman that I met later on, she came to my office, and to see her moving forward in a positive way, that's a small act. Believe me, that's the blessing I can send to my daughters to say that they are alive and they made a difference in
And
others'
your
lives.
children, your surviving children have thrived in Canada. They're going
Yes.
on to graduate degrees and they're becoming computer scientists. And this is all a testament to your character, Dr. Abuelaish, and what a remarkable human being you are.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you all, and to keep
Thank
moving
you.
forward together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abuelaish. Thank you, Marie. Thank you all for watching and being such a great audience. We
Thank
thank
you.
our official radio partner, Red FM Bajate Raho. And please do remember to log in on Tuesday, the 16th of June, for a special session of JLF's Brave New World as we commemorate Bloomsday, celebrating James Joyce's great modernist masterpiece, Ulysses. 2 of the greatest living Irish writers, Paul Muldoon and Colm Toibin, discussed the influence of Joyce and Irish literature with Booker shortlisted poet and novelist Jeet Thayil. See you on Tuesday. Keep safe and look after yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjoy.
Thank you.
Fabulous. That was amazing.